April 1945, the heart of Berlin shook not with the roar of triumph, but with the echoes of defeat. The once mighty Third Reich was on its knees, its armies shattered, its cities in ruins. The man who had dragged the world into war, Adolf Hitler, found himself trapped. Imprisoned not by bars of iron, but by the consequences of his own actions. Deep beneath the Reich Chancellery, in the claustrophobic confines of the Führerbunker, the final act of the Nazi regime was about to unfold. 10 days that would witness the disintegration of a dictator, the despair of a nation, and the death throes of an ideology built on hate. The air in the bunker was heavy, suffocating. The stench of fear and sweat hung thick. The walls seemed to press inward, mirroring the tightening noose of the approaching Red Army. Outside, the relentless barrage of Russian artillery echoed the impending doom. Inside, a macabre play was about to begin, with Hitler as the main character, his supporting cast a collection of fanatical followers and terrified souls. In these final days, the true face of Nazism would be revealed. Stripped bare of its propaganda and its power, it would be exposed for what it truly was. A monstrous edifice of delusion built on a foundation of lies and soaked in the blood of millions. April 20th, 1945. Hitler's 56th birthday. But there were no parades, no cheering crowds, no displays of military might, just the deafening silence of a city bracing for its final stand. The bunker, usually a hive of activity, was eerily quiet. The weight of impending doom hung in the air, a suffocating blanket smothering any flicker of celebration. Hitler, a ghost of his former self, emerged from his private quarters. Gone was the charismatic leader who had once mesmerized a nation. In his place stood a broken man, his shoulders stooped, his spirit crushed. His eyes, once blazing with manic energy, were now dull and lifeless, reflecting the ruins of his Reich. The few remaining members of his inner circle gathered in the cramped conference room. They were a motley crew, united by fear and desperation. Joseph Goebbels, the Minister of Propaganda, still clung to the tattered remnants of hope, his voice hoarse from spewing empty promises. Heinrich Himmler, the architect of the Holocaust, lurked in the shadows, his face a mask of cold calculation. The birthday greetings were hollow, the atmosphere thick with unspoken tension. Even the most ardent Nazis struggled to maintain the facade. The reality was inescapable. Germany was losing. The man they had pledged their lives to, the man who had promised them a 1,000-year Reich, was leading them to oblivion. As the days dwindled, so too did Hitler's grip on reality. He clung to fantasies of miracle weapons and phantom armies, his mind retreating into a world of delusion. Maps, their surfaces cluttered with arrows and symbols, became his battlefield. He moved imaginary divisions, dispatching non-existent reinforcements to stem the tide of the advancing enemy. His generals, once eager to please, now approached him with trepidation. Their reports, filled with news of defeat and retreat, were met with furious outbursts. Hitler raged against his commanders, accusing them of treachery and cowardice. He refused to acknowledge the truth, preferring to live in a world of his own making. Yet even in his madness, Hitler's charisma still held sway. His entourage, a mix of hardened Nazis and terrified sycophants, clung to his every word. They fed his delusions, assuring him that victory was still within reach. They were trapped in a web of their own making, their fate intertwined with that of the dying dictator. The atmosphere in the bunker oscillated between despair and a strange, unsettling calm. The constant shelling, the knowledge that the enemy was closing in, created a surreal sense of detachment. Time seemed to both stand still and race forward at a terrifying pace. The outside world, with its horrors and its hopes, felt very far away. Amidst the chaos, a bizarre scene unfolded. On April 29, 1945, as the Red Army closed in, Hitler married Eva Braun. She was his longtime mistress, now his wife in a desperate act. Hitler, gaunt and pale, mumbled his vows. Eva, red-rimmed eyes, stood beside him. No feast, no music, just grim reality. Section 5, the final testament, a dictator's last words. With the end drawing near, Hitler retreated into himself. He spent hours poring over maps, his mind lost in a labyrinth of tactical fantasies. But the reality was inescapable. The Reich he had sworn to protect lay in ruins, his armies shattered, his people facing a future shrouded in uncertainty. In the early hours of April 29th, with the sounds of battle raging above, Hitler summoned his secretary, Traudl Junge. He dictated his last will and testament, a rambling document that offered a glimpse into his twisted mind. It was a final act of self-justification, a litany of accusations and recriminations. He blamed everyone but himself for Germany's defeat. The Jews, the communists, the Allies, his own generals, all were deemed responsible for the catastrophe that had befallen his Reich. There was no remorse, no acceptance of responsibility, only bitterness and rage. He also outlined his plans for the future. He ordered his successor, Admiral Karl Dönitz, to continue the fight, to never surrender. He demanded that his body be cremated, his remains hidden from the enemy. He wanted no monuments, no memorials, nothing that could serve as a reminder of his reign. Section 6, April 30th, 1945, the end of the nightmare. The end came swiftly. On April 30th, 1945, as Soviet troops fought their way towards the heart of Berlin, Hitler made his final preparations. He had already decided his fate. There would be no last stand, no heroic defense, no surrender. He would choose his own exit, taking his secrets and his legacy with him to the grave. In the early afternoon, he gathered his staff together for a final time. He bade them farewell, thanking them for their loyalty. He shook their hands, his own hand clammy and cold. Then he retreated to his private quarters, accompanied by Eva. A short while later, a single gunshot echoed through the bunker. Hitler was dead, a bullet through his right temple. Eva lay slumped on the sofa beside him, a cyanide capsule clutched in her hand. The reign of terror was over. Their bodies were carried outside and placed in a shallow bomb crater. Gasoline was poured over them and a torch was tossed onto the pyre. As the flames roared, consuming the remains of the dictator and his mistress, the world held its breath. A nightmare had come to an end. Section 7, Inside the Bunker, Eyewitness to History. The events of those final days were witnessed by a handful of individuals who had remained trapped in the bunker with Hitler. Traudl Junge, his loyal secretary, documented the events in her diary, providing a chilling glimpse into the dictator's final days. Others, like Hitler's personal pilot, Hans Bauer, and his valet Heinz Linger, offered their own accounts, each providing a unique perspective on the unfolding drama. They spoke of a man who had become increasingly detached from reality, his mind consumed by paranoia and delusion. Their testimonies paint a picture of a man who was both charismatic and terrifying, capable of great charm and chilling cruelty. They describe the atmosphere in the bunker as one of fear, uncertainty, and a strange, unsettling sense of unreality. These eyewitness accounts provide invaluable insights into the final days of the Third Reich. They offer a glimpse into the mind of a dictator who had led his nation to ruin, and they serve as a reminder of the human cost of extremism and hate. Section 8. The Legacy of a Tyrant. Lessons from the Ruins. The legacy of Adolf Hitler is one of unparalleled destruction and human suffering. His name has become synonymous with the horrors of the Holocaust, the systematic genocide that claimed the lives of 6 million Jews. His ideology, a toxic mix of nationalism, racism, and anti-Semitism, plunged the world into war, leaving millions dead and countless others scarred for life. The world learned a bitter lesson from the ruins of the Third Reich. It learned the dangers of unchecked power, the seductive appeal of demagoguery, and the fragility of peace. The Holocaust, in particular, served as a stark warning about the consequences of indifference and the importance of standing up to hate in all its forms. Hitler's downfall was a victory for humanity, but it came at a terrible cost. The world was left to pick up the pieces, to rebuild from the ashes of war, and to confront the enduring legacy of hatred and division. Section 9. Conclusion. Never forget. The Führer bunker, once a symbol of Nazi power, now stands as a silent reminder of the horrors of the past. It is a place of pilgrimage for those who seek to understand the darkest chapter in human history, a place where the ghosts of the past still linger. The events of those final days in April 1945 serve as a stark warning to future generations. They remind us of the fragility of democracy, the seductive appeal of extremism, and the importance of vigilance in the face of intolerance and hate. The legacy of Adolf Hitler is one of destruction and despair, but it is also a legacy of resilience, of the human spirit's ability to overcome even the darkest of times. We must never forget the lessons of the past, for if we do, we are doomed to repeat them.